Hello and welcome to the Wexford season preview for 2021. I'm here wearing the nice retro jersey from orgaretro.com. If you want to get this shirt, use the promo code ORGAME and you'll get 15% off. I'm joined by Michael Verney, who's wearing a Mayo jersey, but I suppose a bit of a Burr twist on that Orga Retro jersey too.
Yeah, a little beaut. I always think of either Kieran McDonald 1997 or Liam McHale 96 All-Ireland final. One or the other, I'd say, from this. I'd say,
But
yours looks like Tony Dorn, but you are in no way related to Tony Dorn. I can tell you
put up
that.
the paw. Only one plays first. She's sticking in there, lad.
Tell you a good one. We always go down to the Tony Dorn quiz every year, and I just think Tony's absolutely iconic. But like, he'd be walking around, and I'd be just going around doing impressions of him fetching ball. Like, but he caught me absolutely rotten one night. I looked like an absolute fool.
Well, says you're well able to do that every day of the week, so no harm.
That's true. I don't have to try hard, in fairness.
Yeah, well, when you mention Liam McHale and the likes, that's the last thing people think when they see you in green and red. So that's one thing.
I'm after getting a bit of colour there the last week or so. Now, in fairness, I'd have to get a lot more colour to look like Liam McHale.
Yeah, and a few more inches as well. I'd have to add in there. What about Wexford this season? Last year was a disaster. Let's be honest about it. They probably felt like they were overcooked after, everyone had a strange summer, COVID. You had that lead in. They played the hurling championship first in Wexford. Then they played the football, and obviously people thought Wexford had this bit of an advantage going into the championship almost, but they more or less imploded. The way they lost to Galway, so unimpressive. I was in a Croke Park and I was wondering, what am I watching here, really? And then to lose as they did against Clare, it was a pretty disastrous season, wasn't it?
A disastrous season is right, yeah. They offered very little against Galway that evening in Croke Park, and they offered less against Clare. Without being smart, Galway are All-Ireland contenders, serious All-Ireland contenders. So that's saying something, okay? They were beaten comprehensively by serious All-Ireland contenders. Clare are not really serious All-Ireland contenders, with due respect to them. And, Wexford were never in that game in O'Moore Park. And there was a lot of bizarre things kind of going on. They were playing backwards a lot. They were playing laterally a lot. They looked like they were... I don't know. They looked like they were straight-jacketed somewhat in the tactical approach that they were playing. And I'm just thinking about it here now. And I know Paddy Foley's gone for the year as well. It was massive. I'm just not sure exactly who's going to come in for him.
There's talk of Glenn Malone being in there, and the way he played for Shelmaliers last year, like, he's so athletic, big, strong man. Not saying he's the same ball striker, very few are, but there is one man gone in.
Yeah, I just wonder though, outside of that, like, you're kind of looking at their panel hasn't been obviously strengthened in recent years. They haven't had a load of guys, waiting in the wings. We'd say, look, just for example, if you look at the tip squad, there's a good few boys that have got, bits and pieces of league, guys who have performed really well at underage level, like threatening to break through. I don't think, barring two or three lads, that you could say that. I know Glenn Malone is actually in there. He's transferred over from the footballers. He's in there this year as well. A big athletic player too. Whether they're going to be able to get him to fit in at inter-county hurling level within one season is questionable. I'm just not sure what exactly they're going to have to make some changes, but they're not blessed with a lot of options to make those changes. Are they going to radically change things up? Just say, for example, are they going to do something like potentially putting Lee Chin centre back? Are they going to change the focus of the team? They're not blessed with options. A lot of things seem to have clicked for them 2 years ago, and a lot of guys hit their peak at the exact same time, and they produced a couple of brilliant performances. But I don't think they come into 2021 with that much optimism.
Yeah. Do you know, I think that a lot of people out there in Wexford would probably freak out at the thought of, let's tweak this team some more, like put Lee Chin centre back or move things around that way, because they're probably thinking, is one of the biggest issues with this Wexford team that we overcomplicate things and we don't just put lads in positions and keep it somewhat orthodox. Because 1 minute Lee Chin is out roaming around the field, which he's brilliant at doing, all with the idea of creating a little bit of havoc on the other team, so that rather than having a lovely 3-and-3 sitting in defence, nice and structured, that he'll drag out a defender with him and create a bit of space so that the likes of Rory O'Connor and Conor MacDonald can do a bit of damage inside, and Lee Chin will then come on the overlap or the run off the shoulder, and he'll burn through a team's half back line, inside forward line, whatever it might be. Remember that goal he got against Tip in that sort of circumstance in the All-Ireland semi-final in 2019. I don't know I don't think they should. I think they should probably look at what worked in 2019 and think, can we get the essence of that back again and go back to more or less that sort of a team. Maybe last year was just a confluence of factors that worked against them. Maybe it's not about ripping it up. Maybe it's just go back to what became our basics in 2019. Because if you try and change that team around too much more, you might suck even more confidence out of them. They looked at times last year as if it was just so complicated. Didn't it just look like it was hard work? And maybe their game style wasn't suited to winter hurling either. And that's not going to be an issue this time. So just get back to what you were good at and hope that, unlike last year going into the season, that Lee Chin is fully right, because so much revolves around it.
Yeah, no, fair point. I know I was chatting to Saoirse Bulford there about 2 months ago or that, and basically said that, during the first lockdown, the guys were doing a lot of individual training or whatever, and they thought they were going to be playing an early championship. Didn't work out like that. By the time they got to their clubs, they were flying. By the time they were finished with their clubs, they were fairly fatigued, and then they were starting another season again. So, they've openly kind of said that could totally backlashed on them. This is going to be. It looks like it's going to be Davy's 5th and final year in Wexford. Just interesting to see, do they bring? And I know you're saying about going back to the future almost with the way they played in 2019.
You mentioned there that it's his 5th season and looking like his final one. Do you think a lot, like his tenure kind of rides on this season, or is he going to go out with credit no matter what? Like, he got that Leinster title a couple of years ago, and he brought them from, there'd been the likes of Liam Dunn had brought them up a little bit, but they obviously had another step or two to go. And I think, he did that because they won a Leinster title, they got to an All-Ireland semi-final. But do you think much is riding on this season? Would a disastrous season really take away from the legacy?
Disastrous season would take a fair bit away from the legacy, to be honest with you, because you know how fickle people are now. Like, I was chatting Martin's story about this before. Like, people only remember just what's gone. A lot of them. You have to, if you're a deeper thinker, you're kind of thinking, but here, listen, lads, he won us, a Leinster title in 2019. We were nearly in an All-Ireland final, beaten by a score by the eventual All-Ireland champions. But the majority of people will just see, sure, we were brutal last year in the 2 games. We didn't look like we wanted to attack. None of our best hurlers are playing anyway well up to the level that they should be. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see what are they going to show us this year, because they showed us very, very little last year. So the pressure, I don't know if the pressure is on. In one way, the pressure is on because they don't know what's coming. They don't know who's going to be managing them in 2022. They don't know will they have that sort of squad together? Will the big injuries be picked up or by any of their big players? Will people leave the squad or whatever? They've had a relatively young age profile. I think Éanna Martin was the only one that's left, and apart from Paddy Foley leaving the panel. So yeah, it's just going to be really, really interesting to see what they do. But I think my expectations wouldn't be particularly high anyway, to be honest with you, heading into this year.
Do you think they get enough out of some of their star men? Like Conor McDonald, we know can be unbelievable some days, but you kind of just need him to deliver a little bit more often, because there's very little that he doesn't have. Rory O'Connor, he's should be hitting that age now when he's starting to take over games. And again, you see flashes of it sometimes where he's absolutely scintillating, but just to see it a little bit more, I think it's fair to say that Lee Chin generally kind of does show up. He has the odd quiet game, but in general, he's a big threat, and at a very minimum, it requires a lot of minding. Diarmuid O'Keefe has done an awful lot has had a lot of great games over the years. But is it those key men that we need to see a little bit more from, or supposed key men?
Yeah, it's such a thin line between the game plan being perfect and the game plan being a bit convoluted and lads not knowing what they're doing. Conor McDonald's an interesting one. He's done a bit of a, kind of like Austin Gleeson, he's done a bit of a body transformation there in recent months, and he's in, I know people often say it, but he's in the best shape of his life. He's in serious nick coming into this year. They don't often get enough out of him though, and a lot of time that's to do with the type of role that he's playing. Same with Rory O'Connor. A lot of time he can be far too deep. I know you want to get your best players on the ball, but a lot of time, like last year against Clare, he was picking up the ball 45 yards out from goal. Like, you're placing huge demands on lads' kind of bodies. To me, he has to be 65 yards in, or midfield in at least, and he can pick off scores from there. But like last year, that never looked like it happened. Dee O'Keefe, probably one of the fittest players in the country and an absolute energizer bunny. Like, he looked so fatigued at different stages in games last year. There was no juice left at all. So if the only thing the Wexford management do is make sure that their players have a bounce in them this year, they'll be a totally different prospect than they were last year, and they'll be something like they were in 2019. But it's difficult. It's difficult. They're a nice bit down the pecking order for me at the moment.
Yeah, and I think everyone out there is going to want to know. The Burr manager Brendan Bugler was part of the backroom team last year, and you've surely kind of picked his brain at this stage. But then again, I have a feeling there's an excuse coming. We haven't had any training yet.
No, so we haven't met up yet.
As if you aren't, as if you're not ringing him and sickening him every day.
Interesting though, because Brendan Bugler's gone to us from Wexford. He was with Wexford for a year. I think he was forwards coach actually, which is an interesting one. But Niall Corcoran is the former Laois coach, is now coach with Wexford. So Davy was quite quick to pick him up and bring him down there. And you kind of hope, from Davy's point of view, I'd imagine he's hoping that an influx of fresh blood there, lad coming from Laois, where they did pretty well with Laois, him and Eddie, in fairness. So it'd be interesting to see what he brings to the table there too. Just it's an interesting year, and as you say, a legacy can be tainted by recency bias. If Wexford finished with 2 bad years under Davy, to be honest, only an Egypt would forget what he's achieved, particularly in 17 and 19. But no more than myself, there are a lot of Egypts out there.
But yeah, this is the thing. Like they lost their games last year by a total of 20 points. 2 games losing by 20 points. Like that's gonna sting. So if you can't fire them up for this, you can't fire up those players for anything. And I reckon that they could make a decent burst of it this year. But again, much like Kilkenny, maybe they're just lacking that 1 or 2 players at the sharp end of the field that's going to get them that goal or two.
As well as that, Shane, we did best player. We did best players throughout different positions last year. We didn't stumble upon too many Wexford guys. There was 2 or 3 that were in the conversation. But if you're looking at, do they have 3 or 4 of the best hurlers in the country when you put them down on paper? Not so sure. I think there are some other parts, maybe more so than that. Do they have the best squad in the country? I don't think they do. Are they in the top 5 or 6 for the best squads in the country? Probably not. So everything has to be absolutely on point, and everyone has to be singing from the exact same hymn sheet, and energy levels have to be to an absolute optimum for Wexford to be achieving what they did in 2017 and in 19. So maybe the stars will align, but I'm definitely going to be a doubting Thomas. I'm going to have to see it to believe it.
Absolutely, and it'd be interesting to see how many people put Wexford players on their fantasy team. You can go to fantasyhurling.ie, and there's up to €2,300 worth of prizes to be won. There's an Our Game league on there as well if you want to battle it out with myself and Mr. Verney there. The invitation code is on my Twitter at Shane Saint. And just
here and now, Shane, we'll do €50. Whoever finishes higher in the league, me and you, okay?
£50. Do you know what? I'd love to hear people's best sort of bets that they have on this. There's a group of friends that I know, and previously they used to do a Premier League fantasy league every year, and whoever finished last, they had the wooden spoon, which involved getting a tattoo of something that was representative of being last. So one lad, he got a tiny little tattoo, tiny little thing on the sole of his foot, where it was just a wooden spoon. So I think a forfeit, is a £50 forfeit what we want?
No. Forget about the £50. We'll do some sort of a forfeit. I won't get a tattoo or anything like that, but we'll do a forfeit.
Maybe something like you want to get a chainsaw at that head of hair of yours.
The barbers, I tell you, whenever the barbers start back, they'll have a full afternoon with me.
Well, I'll tell you what, if someone out there has a good suggestion, we'll run with that. So obviously the league is going to start this weekend. The best suggestion in, we'll go with it.
Best forfeit for you if you lose, and best forfeit for me, because what hurts you is different than what hurts me.
Yeah,
so
that's fair. I don't have to rely on my hair to look all right. Just one final thing then, the club fundraisers that we're running this year at Our Game. If you want some information on that, email us at events@ourgame.ie. It's basically running a live show for your club. We'll get some great guests on, provide the ticketing platform where you can sell all your tickets and your raffle tickets, that type of thing as well, and it'll be a live show done over Zoom where everyone will get an individual code to watch the show.